On today's Fit to Eat, I'll be preparing pan-seared steak with strawberry compote and homemade potato crisps. Registered dietitian Rebecca Turner has some tips for buying beef, and my guest is the Lieutenant Governor of the great state of Mississippi, Tate Reeves. It's going to be a great show, so stay tuned. Welcome to Fit to Eat. I'm your host, Rob Stinson. Today, my guest is the Lieutenant Governor of Mississippi, Tate Reeves. Man, it's good to be up in your neck of the woods.
Good to see you, Rob. How are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great.
Good.
We're going to have some fun today. We're going to be doing what I kind of call the all-American meal, but on a healthy twist.
Awesome.
We good with that?
I'm very good with that.
All right. So what we have here, and I'm just going to kind of point them out, and you can come on over here so we can kind of look at it. This is actually a piece of beef that is a shoulder tenderloin. So it's about a third of the price of filet, but it's still got the tenderness of that. And it's extremely lean, so it's a good, healthy piece of beef. So what I'm gonna do, you mind if I put you to work?
Please do.
All right, I'm gonna put these seasoning in the bowl. This is some garlic powder, so salt-free, pepper, and a little bit of coffee. And what I'm going to do is just ask you to kind of mix that all together thoroughly.
Okay.
So what we're going to do while we're doing all this, I have to ask you, you know, I saw you speak, and it was very compelling. And it was kind of like your life story that you said. So how on earth did you get started at such a young age? Because I think that's amazing.
Well, I've always been interested in politics and government, and way back in 2003, our state treasurer decided not to run for re-election. I got a few phone calls from people around. I was actually, Ely and I were traveling in California at the time. Got a few phone calls, and they said, hey, we think we'd like for you to run for state treasurer, because they knew I was interested in government and they knew that my job was in the private sector managing money for a living. And so the treasurer's office at that time was exactly where government and finance intersect. And so I was a guy that was 28 years old and fortunate enough to put my name on the ballot and go for it.
That's incredible, man. It really is. I swear it really is. What we're going to take and do right now, we've got some beautiful tarragon I'm going to take off this plate. So we're going to use that later. And all I'm going to do is take some of this seasoning that you mixed up so well. Hey, good job. And we're going to kind of
instructions well.
Yeah, I know that feeling. You're married and I'm married.
Exactly.
Sorry, did I say that out there? Good thing they're not watching me, all right? All right, so what we're doing is just really literally dusting the beef with that beautiful seasoning mix. And I'm gonna take it, set it over here, and spray this pan with a little zero-fat spray, and put a tiny bit of oil. We try to keep everything down to a bare minimum when it comes to fat that we're doing here on Fit to Eat. And bear with me 1 second, and now we'll pop those right in the pan. All right, now, that would be good, but it's not real pretty, you know, steak and potatoes. I like to think that you eat with your eyes as much as you do, you know, I'll grab that from you. You know, as much as you do your taste buds. So we're gonna take now and throw in some onions. And I tell you what I may have you do. Do you mind stirring?
No, I'll be happy to.
All right, I'm gonna actually put you to work here.
You're right.
Some red bell pepper. And I'm gonna make enough because actually at the end of the show, guess what?
We get to eat?
You do. You get to try it, all right? It's kind of a neat deal. And we got to have some other color in there, so I'm throwing in some zucchini. And I don't think we need this whole bunch. This is probably perfect right there. And anybody that knows me, especially down on the Gulf Coast, knows garlic. It's got to have some garlic.
Everybody on the Gulf Coast knows you.
That's kind of scary.
It is.
Well, I would imagine you're kind of in the same boat, so you know what it is like. What we're going to do now is take one more, and this is going to be about a teaspoon of oil. and it really will cook out of the food. And I have to ask, okay, I had a guest on the show who I think you know,
Who's that?
who you probably feel pain for every day. It's got to be Paul Lacoste.
My friend Paul Lacoste.
Yeah.
I worked out with him this morning.
Did you really?
I did. He's a great guy, and he started this Fit for Change here in Mississippi. Included the legislature years ago. I got involved 2 or 3 years ago, and it's really. Some people think you're crazy for going and doing it because Paul is a crazy man. He has the potential to be a crazy man, but he's passionate about Mississippi, he cares about Mississippi, and he wants us to, as a state, recognize the things that we need to do to get more healthy. And that's why I think this show is great, and what he's doing is great.
I mean, we're going to get into talking about education. We're going to get into talking about kind of tax and what the future is. But the one thing that I think absolutely as a state we need is to find a way to get healthier,
No question.
And I think he's got that kind of drive. But I had a feeling when I saw that you worked out with him that you and I have a trainer who's very much like him. He's just an evil man at times, but it keeps you working, it keeps you going, and it keeps you really healthy.
No question. And look, Paul is passionate about Mississippi. He's passionate about us becoming more healthy. It's important from a fiscal standpoint. We literally spend hundreds of millions of dollars in Mississippi because we're not as healthy as we should be as a state. And it's also obviously important to each individual who are having the kind of challenges from a health standpoint that obesity and other things lead to. So it's really it's something that I've enjoyed doing. It's been good for me personally, but I think it's also good for all of us to set an example for people across the state.
I think it's a great point. I'm gonna be doing a whole lot of ingredients here. It's gonna be kind of hard to follow, so don't forget, if you want to get the recipes, go to mpbonline.org/fit-to-eat or join the MPB Facebook page. Now, here's what we're going to do next. All right, I'm going to have a little fun and just start flipping and get those brown veggies all around. The beef is really coming along well, huh? Look at that sear it's got. That coffee on there, I'm telling you, it's really different. It really is. This is an unusual recipe. Now, we're going to kind of turn these to get the actual other side because they're so thick. And we're going to do them probably about medium, so for what the average person would want.
Sure.
So, there's a lot of other things that I think you have accomplished. We were talking about education. Let's touch on that real quick.
Well, look, if we're going to see long-term economic growth and prosperity in Mississippi, we must improve the educational attainment level of our citizens. And we've got a lot of room for improvement. We've got to see more kids stay in high school and graduate. And we've actually seen a lot of progress there. When I first got elected lieutenant governor, Mississippi's graduation rate was about 70.5%. The most recent numbers show it at 80.8%.
Wow.
A huge increase in kids staying in school and actually graduating from high school.
I mean, that's more than 10% increase.
It's more than 10%. And by the way, the national average when I started was 82%. The national average today is still 82%. So not only are we improving drastically on an absolute basis, we're improving drastically relative to our peers around the country. And
on a national level.
And that's something we ought to be proud of. And it's something that we don't talk about enough because everybody wants to talk about the negative and everybody wants to talk about the bad stuff. But look, we're making some real progress in Mississippi, and we ought to be proud of that.
Isn't it sad how sometimes that becomes the focus, and it really is unfair. And I tell you what, that's why I have all the respect in the world for what you do, because I know it is. It's kind of at times a thankless job, but you know what? It's really impressive to see. And when I saw you speak down on the Gulf Coast, it truly was one of the best speeches, and I pride myself in doing it. It was really good.
Well, thank you. You're kind to say that.
No,
Look,
but I mean it.
I'm passionate about it. I think we're going to continue to improve Mississippi if we stay on the right path, and I'm convinced that it's the right thing to do. And we've got a long way to go, but we're making tremendous progress every day.
Well, I know there's a lot more we can touch on, and obviously, I understand that you have a family of athletes.
They think they're athletes. So I have 3 little girls, 112, 110, and 15. My 12-year-old plays softball, loves it. My middle child plays soccer and is literally all over the Southeast playing soccer. Every weekend we're going to Memphis, I believe, this weekend to play. So it keeps me busy and it keeps them out and about, which I think is a good thing.
It absolutely is. Would you do me a favor and grab that green plate?
Absolutely.
Because what we're going to do, it's a great way to kind of demonstrate to people with a piece of beef like this. I'm going to slice it And if it comes off the heat and rests a little bit, it won't bleed out and it keeps all the juices inside. So it's kind of a neat little trick. And you got these veggies looking, I mean, just perfect. You did a great job getting those stirred up. No, they really are. They look perfect. You see how crisp they are? Colors are vibrant. That's absolutely the most important thing. And I tell you what, we're going to take a short break and go to our registered dietitian, Rebecca Turner. She has some great tips about buying beef. We'll be right back.
When it comes to debating what constitutes a healthy diet, it doesn't get more divisive than the topic of red meat consumption. It appears there's a line that has been drawn in the sand, and you must choose whether red meat is good or bad for you. But rarely are there absolutes in research on health, including red meat intake. There is no dispute, however, that making healthier meat choices can have a long-term impact on your health and your ability to avoid chronic illness, such as heart disease. Over-consuming red and processed meat is linked to increasing your risk of heart disease and certain cancers. Some cuts of red meat are higher in saturated fat, which raises your blood cholesterol more than other cuts. So learning to remove processed meats like sandwich meat, hot dogs, sausage, and bacon from your everyday diet and choosing leaner cuts of red meat will allow you to have your beef and eat it too. So whether you're watching your health or your weight, you can still enjoy lean beef on occasion. So here are a few pointers to purchasing the leanest options. When selecting ground beef, opt for the lowest percentage of fat. Ground meat with 73% lean, 27% fat provides 31 grams of fat per 4-ounce serving. Now compare that to 96% lean, 4% fat, which provides only 4.5 grams of fat per serving. When you're looking at other cuts of meat, look for the graded choice or select instead of prime, which usually has more fat. Now, roast and steak, look for words like round or sirloin, which such as eye of round, top sirloin, tenderloin, or sirloin steak. These all have less saturated fat. If you still have questions about which cut to purchase, just ask your butcher. And don't forget, just reduce and replace processed meat choices with these leaner cut options and your beef will be fit to eat.
Welcome back. All right, so now for the all-American meal, you got to have potatoes, right?
Absolutely.
You got to. All right, I've already taken the luxury of slicing a bunch of them thin. What we're going to do now, I'm going to have you do another seasoning mix.
Okay.
So I'm going to read these off. That's a little bit of garlic powder, onion powder, so again, no salt. That's the beauty of those powders. Some basil, dry basil. All these are dry herbs, by the way. A little bit of dry parsley. Some extra pepper. I've already put a little pepper on there, so I'm going to go light on it. And a little white pepper. And I think at that point we are actually looking perfect. So as you do that, I'm going to move that plate forward and then take these potatoes, put a little zero fat spray again, and then just a touch of oil. Pan is very hot, so we're going to turn that down, and then I'm going to throw all of these potatoes right in there, and then we're going to dust them on top while they're in the pan. It's going to be kind of an easy way to do it. So anyhow, you know, big time for Mississippi.
Absolutely.
With the bicentennial,
Yeah.
huh? I was so thrilled to be involved down on the coast. I'll grab that from you.
All right.
And I can't make you work too hard. But really, talk about it, because, you know, I get tons of questions down there. Why was the bicentennial on the coast and not in Jackson? And I think there's a big misconception. They don't realize that the bicentennial, you know, is going to be in different places as well.
Right, so we have 3 large celebrations celebrating our bicentennial. We had the one that was on the coast. We have another one in Oxford, which is going to occur in late June. And then the third and final major celebration is going to be here in Jackson with the grand opening of the 2 Museum project that's going on in downtown Jackson right now. The state invested a significant amount of resources. The private sector invested a significant amount of resources. But if you look back at the bicentennial, it's really an amazing thing because we started on the coast, by the way, because it was at Centennial Plaza.
Right.
As you know, Centennial Plaza
Right.
was built in the early 1900s.
Yep.
For the purpose of celebrating, and then World
And
War
then we
I
never
started.
had it.
And then World War I started.
I
And
don't think most people know that either. You
Yeah.
know, I was very involved on the committee that did it, and I was
Yeah.
very involved in the whole process. But a lot of people don't realize that that was something that never happened.
Right.
That we literally missed as a state because the war started. And I think that's something that really deserves to be said.
No question, and
You
I think that's important. And then we're going to Oxford in June, another large celebration, primarily Mississippi artists coming in. It's going to be a neat event. And what I've said really all over the state, talking about the bicentennial, is Mississippi has a very complicated history. We all recognize that. We all say that. But we also have an awful lot of really good things going on around our state. And we ought to quit apologizing and start celebrating some of the great things that are going on in Mississippi. And that's something that I think this bicentennial gives us the opportunity to do.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely. And it gives people a chance to come together and have like a good spirit. You know,
Absolutely.
I mean, that was the thing that amazed me is the event kind of pulled together, and when everybody got out there, I mean, the music, the food, the environment, the military presence, I mean, it was tear-jerking at some points.
Yeah, and it was people of different political persuasions,
Right.
people from different backgrounds, different financial resources, et cetera, and everybody came together to celebrate our Mississippi. And I think that's an exciting time. We, by the way, are not limiting the celebrations to just those 3 large events. We also have an opportunity, legislature appropriated dollars, to allow for celebrations in small communities throughout the state. So
Really?
we have got things like the opportunity for a book festival in Jackson. We've got other events going on in small communities all throughout Mississippi. Grants were available to do that. And that's something we ought to celebrate as well because Mississippi has some population centers, the coast, Jackson, obviously south of Memphis and over in Tupelo. But we also, what makes up Mississippi is a lot of small communities and people have been around a long time.
All those rural areas
Absolutely.
have a chance to have a little bit of fun with this too.
Exactly.
Yeah,
and by the way, it's an educational opportunity for kids. How many of our kids around Mississippi don't fully appreciate and understand that this is our bicentennial, that we've got 200 years now
I know.
Of ups and downs, of
I hate to
positives
say
and
it,
negatives. But
I have 2 of them. I really do. But, you know, I was so excited to be involved. I'm going to add just a touch more oil. I was so excited to be involved, and it was really, really moving because you had so many people from the military presence that's here, especially the retirees on the Gulf Coast. You know, I mean, there's a huge military presence down on the Gulf Coast.
I've got to tell you, I've had the opportunity to travel all over the country, and rarely do I go to any other state in which someone does not come up to me and say, you know, I was stationed at Keesler back 40 years ago.
Right.
It was the best 6 months or best year of my life.
Right.
And they love it. And that's their
Right.
impression of.
I know, they were on the beach.
And so
You
a
know?
lot of those retirees on the Gulf Coast, they weren't there when they retired. They came to Keesler, they enjoyed it, they traveled around other parts of the country, the military sent them various places, but they wanted to get back because they enjoyed their time there. And the same can be said for NAS Meridian or the Air Force Base in Columbus.
Yeah.
The military personnel are looking to come back to Mississippi because they know Mississippians care and they know Mississippians respect and love our military and what they do to keep us safe.
It's so true. And, you know, I mean, my father was in World War II. My whole family, I mean, huge military background. And I loved when I came here because I felt at home, you know, and that's just one thing that a lot of people don't really recognize. But, all right, let's do this real quick. We're going to take a short break. And when we come back, I'll finish this up and have our actual lieutenant governor try the food. How about that?
I'm excited about that.
All right, that sounds good.
Well, Rosie's Garden was founded by Thomas and Michelle Harris, and they started Rosie's Garden with some seed money that they won from their church. They felt that they wanted to do something charitable with it, and they named the garden after Thomas's mother, Rose. And it's a community garden where we work the land and we mentor children and get volunteers to help grow produce to give to people in need. Growing fresh organic produce means a lot to me because I think that that is a definite lack in people's nutrition We've donated some of the harvest to the Domestic Violence Center in Pearl, as well as to several families here in Rankin County. One particular family that's battling cancer. They needed more produce and green leafy vegetables in their diet. We also donate to other organizations like Mississippi Food Network, Stew Pot. Several organizations are recipients of the garden. And as you can see at the garden, it is a large community garden at this point. We have 36 beds, and all 36 beds had donated plants that volunteers put in the ground. I see this becoming more and more popular in this community. We've had a great response thus far. I see that volunteers will continue to support the project. We've had just a huge outpouring of donations as well as time that's been spent in the garden, and I think it's going to continue to become something very big in Rankin County.
All right, welcome back. I tell you what, we've been busy, huh?
Very busy.
I love it. All right, I took the liberty of slicing the beef, and I actually took those beautiful potato crisps, put them on the plate, just so we had enough time to do what we're going to do. But I'm going to put you to work one more time.
One more time.
One more time. And this is a little fat-free sour cream and a little fat-free cream cheese. I just need you to mix that. That's going to be our healthy topping for those wonderful potato crisps. I'm going to throw a little fresh, dry basil in there. And I tell you what, you know, we've been talking about so many different things in the state. What direction? Oh, by the way, I'm going to actually start right now on the strawberry compote, which is kind of a savory and sweet. So we've got pepper, onion in that pan right now. This will happen pretty quickly, but yeah, go ahead and talk a little bit about it.
Well, I think we're headed in the right direction. We've seen a significant tax reform in the last 5 years, where we're really going to create an environment where we encourage private sector capital investment in Mississippi, which is going to be good for job creation, bringing
Little strawberries, just so
sure
they see over there.
Bringing better and higher paying jobs to our state. That's one of the things that we need, and we have to have an educated workforce to get there. And we've talked about education reform, which is extremely important. We think we're headed in the right direction. We need more. You'll see more efforts for consolidations of school districts. We've consolidated about 13. Again, we want to
saves a lot of money.
Saves a lot of money. We want to put more money in the classroom, less money in the district office.
A little red wine in there. And we're going to kind of turn the heat down. I love tarragon. Smell that. It's absolutely beautiful.
Woo, that's great.
Isn't that great? Little fresh tarragon goes in there. So we got the strawberries, the onion, the red wine. We're having fun, huh?
This is great.
All right. And last couple items, honey, which I'm going to just stir right in.
Wow.
So that's the natural sweetness. And then we're going to thicken it with a little bit of applesauce. And believe it or not, that is done. So if you want, I am actually already kind of cheated and made up your plate. I tell you what, gotta admit, that looks really different and really unusual, but it's really, really tasty. All right,
great.
so, hey gang, I just want to remind everybody to go to mpbonline.org/fit-to-eat or the MPB Facebook page, join it, so you can get these recipes, because that's the important part. Let's put it back over there just for a second. All right, and we're gonna actually spoon this over yours. Are you ready for it?
I'm ready for it.
How about you grab your plate? Man, it smells so good. And this is really a different way of eating it. You know, a lot of people have red wine sauces, but I love doing it when you've got kind of savory and sweet together. That should be good. All right, I think I left you a knife and fork over there.
Thank you.
I'm gonna do the same thing and put the strawberries right here across the beef as a topping on this. And I tell you what, woo, the aroma, huh? Gotta admit.
It is.
All right, now here's my challenge, all right? I hope it's good.
I do too. One thing I've learned today, however.
Little color. How about a little color on there for
I think I'm a pretty good outside cook.
Uh-huh.
I learned what an amateur I am. Every time I'm around you, I learn what an amateur I am.
That's not fair. I love it when you're down on the coast, though. You know, we always have a great time. Mm-hmm. Always have a great time. So what's the thought?
It's fabulous.
Thank you.
Absolutely fabulous.
Thank you. Yeah.
Really, really good.
Well, you know what? We were talking about, the idea of family and all. Think about having this in your house, I think families would just go crazy over it. And I got the sauce right here. We're going to add that little bit. You got to have one last sample. And we got that little bit of cream cheese going on there. Doesn't need to be a lot. And I'm going to do the same over here. Something good and healthy. But it adds that kind of idea of how people like sour cream, People love to put sour cream on potatoes, and let's face facts. Typically, when they add the cream and the cheese and the bacon, it just kills any health aspect, It really does. And my kids love dipping. I got like dippers.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's incredible. It's so very good.
Awesome.
The sauce, by the way, I didn't know exactly what to expect. It is fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's got that kind of flavor of the sweet, but it doesn't need to be overpowering because you want the heartiness of the beef,
Right.
So, I think that what you've described shows that Mississippi's got a great future. There's going to be a lot of new things coming up this year. I'm excited. I love being down on the Gulf Coast. I really do. I absolutely do.
Well, Rob, thanks so much for having me here today. And what's going on the coast is great. What's going on all throughout Mississippi? We're seeing positive things happen from north to south, from east to west. And that's something we ought to be proud of. We ought to brag about it and keep building on it. And we have a bright future.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, obviously, I want to thank our guest, Lieutenant Governor Tate Reeves. I'm your host, Rob Stinson. Eat well. And I think we will from this point on.
No doubt. Thank you.